We are now in our second topic for Unit 1, Definitions of Terms and General Principles. Our topic is General Principles. This is a lecture in Physio 50, Journal of Veterinary Physiology. We previously discussed some definitions of terms that we are going to use for the course. Now we are going to discuss some general principles that may help us understand the course even more. We'll discuss 4 faculties of Galen, the factors influencing physiological processes and functions, structural and functional organization of the body, and physiological control. So let's start with the doctrine of the 4 faculties as proposed by Galen. Galen is a physician, surgeon, and a philosopher from the Roman Empire. He is also known as Galen of Pergamon. He basically enumerated these faculties as the most important functions of organisms, particularly animals. So kasama dito, this includes vital faculty, natural faculty, psychic faculty, and generative faculty. So vital faculty is the faculty of an organism to vitalize or supply nutrients to the body or to the cells of the body. So ang principal organ dito sa vital faculty is the heart. And of course, kasama na yung the whole cardiovascular system. The natural faculty refers to the faculty of the animal to feed itself, obtain substances from its environment, and the principal organ here is the liver. And of course, kasama na rin ang whole digestive system. For the psychic faculty, ito naman yung ability or faculty of the animal to have thoughts, be aware, and perceive things. Of course, the principal organ here is the brain, and of course, included na rin yung whole nervous system. The other faculty, which is the generative faculty, is the capability of the animal to reproduce or procreate. Of course, the principal organs would be the gonads or the testicles or the testes and the ovaries. But also, included na rin yung buong reproductive system. Okay? So that's it for Galen's 4 faculties. Now, physiological processes and functions are governed or influenced by various factors, even yung previously discussed na 4 faculties. So these are laws of physics and chemistry, or a living organism is still governed by the laws of physics and chemistry. The genotype and the environment, and that is equivalent to the phenotype. So that influences the physiological processes and function, as well as homeostatic regulation, and evolutionary history of species. So if you think a bit more, you will notice that these factors are definitely interrelated. So halimbawa, yung homeostatic regulation is a process or a function of various chemicals. So that will be governed by physical and chemical laws. And yung chemicals na yun, usually proteins, are produced based on the genotype of the animal. And yung genotype, madalas, it is actually related sa filial affiliation niya or sa evolutionary history ng kanyang species. The body has a hierarchy of body structure which starts from the smallest chemical, which these chemicals then form the cells. Then these cells form the tissues form organs, and the organs form the body systems. This is why they are often called organ system. So it's the same, it refers to the same thing. Okay? So, the cell is considered to be the basic structural and functional unit of life. So there are cells that are similar in terms of structure and function, and there are cells that are highly specialized. So medyo example for highly specialized cells are neurons, na yun lang ang function nila, to conduct impulses or to process information. Tissues, on the other hand, are a group of cells that perform a specific function. Okay, so the 4 basic types of tissues of the body are epithelia, connective, muscle, and nervous tissues. Okay? So then we have the organ. The organ is a group of tissues that coordinate in performing a function. Examples of organs, of course, are liver, heart. Okay, so these organs coordinate to perform a specific function. Ang example ng closely coordinating organs are the lungs and heart. So they closely coordinate to transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. Some organs have one or few functions, like the heart, so it's for pumping blood. Some have many functions, like the liver. So the liver produces bile. It processes or it metabolizes chemicals. So marami pang ibang function. Okay? So iba-iba ang mga organs in terms of the number of functions. Now, the body systems, on the other hand, is a group of organs and tissues coordinating in performing a function. Okay, so body systems in turn interact and coordinate to maintain homeostasis and to maintain life in general. Okay, so the samples of body systems, so there are many ways to group and discuss the body systems. However, you must always remember that most of the discussions of organizations in physiology is just precisely for the sake of discussion. Okay? Hindi natin pwede siyang sabihin na yung digestive system, for instance, is totally separate from other systems. Okay? So we must remember, or we must not forget, that in reality, in the case of body systems, the groups have overlapping functions and some even have interdependent functions. Okay? An example would be the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. So, ang cardio, sometimes it is actually referred to as the cardiorespiratory system. Kasi ang respiratory system, talagang hindi siya makaka-function without the cardiovascular system. Okay? Another is the neuroendocrine system, which is a combination of the nervous system and the endocrine system. Kasi, actually, ang function nila ay iisa. Regulation of body functions. Okay? So, as I said, maraming ways to group the body systems. Merong iba-ibang references, iba-ibang pagkakagroup nila. And for this example, we have 12 body systems. So, we have here the digestive, muscular system, and integumentary system. The basic function of the digestive system, or the basic or ultimate function of the digestive system, is for the absorption of nutrients from food. Muscular system is for the movement of the body. The integumentary system is protection from external environment or external hazards. The lymphatic system is for the transport of lymph or body fluids. The endocrine system is for the regulation of body functions. Nervous system is the same as the endocrine system ang function niya. Okay? So, ang difference lang ng dalawa is the way they do it. Okay? So, later, we'll discuss some of the details of how these systems functions and how they do their jobs. Okay? Then we have the respiratory system, which the main function is to absorb oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The urinary system, which is to maintain balance of water and electrolytes. The transport of nutrients around the body is the main function of the circulatory system. This is sometimes called the cardiovascular system. Okay? Then we have the skeletal system, which is mainly for support and serves as body frame. And for male reproductive system and the female reproductive system is of course for reproduction and procreation. As you may notice, and I'm sure you're thinking right now, na marami pang other functions kayong naiisip or naaalala with regards to each of the body systems. Ang pinakita lang natin dito is yung kanilang main or some of their prominent function. For instance, for the skeletal system, ang main function niya is for support and as for body frame. But in fact, it is also the major reservoir of calcium. Okay, so that's one main function of the skeletal system. Okay, for our last topic, we have the physiological control mechanisms. Okay, so the body has a control system that is very similar to control systems sa mga machines. Okay, they have these three basic components. One, the control center, the effector, and the receptors. Okay, So as shown here in this diagram, yan yung main ano. So how they do, the basic process is that the receptor detects a disturbance or a change or a stimuli or stimulus. Then these receptors send signals to the control system. In the case of the body, it usually is the brain or the central nervous system. So included sa CNS would be the spinal cord. Then this information is compared to the set point that is, or the reference point that is recorded in the control center. Then the control center will send signals to the effectors, pwede itong gland, pwede itong muscles, that will lead to a response or an adjustment or a correction if there is a disturbance. Okay? So as you may see, the control system usually is a closed loop. Okay? And usually, the result of the action of effectors is to stop or to change to stop the changes or the disturbance. Okay? So in a way, it's a negative feedback. So, pag na-correct na to, wala na ma-detect ang receptor, then shut down na yung mag-off na yung loop. Okay? So there are basic four types ng control mechanisms. One is the negative feedback loop, which is the most basic. The positive feedback loop, the feed forward. Actually, itong tatlo yung pinaka-basic control mechanisms of the body. But also, we have adaptive control. Okay? Here is an example of a negative feedback loop. Okay, since it is a loop, we can start anywhere, but we will start with this. So, for this person, for instance, nag-decrease yung body temperature niya, pwedeng due to decrease ambient temperature, halimbawa malamig. So, nakatapat siya sa aircon. So, the heating process of the body is activated. Pwede siya mag-shiver so that to produce body heat. Then, as he does that, even involuntarily, his body temperature increases. Then, makokorek na yun. So, babalik na siya dun sa kanyang original state. For this side, it's actually the same. Ang kaibahan lang, nag-increase yung temperature, pwedeng through ambient temperature din. Diba? Nakabili siya sa araw. So, dito naman ang ma-activate, of course, would be the cooling processes like sweating or looking for shade, drinking water. So, that the body temperature will decrease, then babalik siya dun sa kanya. So, mapapansin nyo, they are both closed loops. Okay? So, the plus and minus signs here does not mean this is a negative feedback or this is a positive feedback. Okay? Ang positive feedback is actually different. So, ang negative feedback is corrective. So, once na na-correct na yung disturbance, titigil na yung So, ang ginagawa sa negative feedback is that it promotes stability. It says, it makes a body process stop. Okay? For the positive feedback naman, it's also called a vicious cycle kasi ang ginagawa niya, instead na itigil niya na yung isang change, ang ginagawa niya, nire-reinforce pa niya. Okay, for instance, in this case, during parturition or giving birth, let's start with the head of the baby pushing against the cervix. So once the head of the baby push against the cervix, nerve impulses from the cervix are transmitted to the brain, which stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete oxytocin. Oxytocin then is carried to the bloodstream, going back to the uterus. Actually, oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions and pushes baby towards the cervix. So, ang mangyayari, tutulungan niya ng myometrium na lalo pang mapush yung So, kita niyo ang nangyari is actually, instead na i-correct niya yung unang stimulus, tinulungan pa niya. Okay? So, but don't you worry. Kasi ito, for example purposes lang, meron syempre at some point in time, kailangan tumigil yung positive feedback. So, usually, feedback loops are intertwined. The positive feedback loops are always intertwined with negative feedback loops. Now, ano naman yung feed forward? Feed forward, unlike the first two, is not a closed loop. The change is anticipated instead of detected. So, ang mangyayari ay bago pa mangyari yung change, magkakaroon na ng process or gagawin yung body para makapaganda for that change. Okay? Receptors involved are not part of the loop. Ang example ay yung if you are an athlete or kung sa PE nyo, mapapansin nyo lagi kayong sinasabihan ng instructors na mag-stretching muna before any exercise because stretching actually results in increase in heart rate and respiratory rate. Okay? Even before you start exercising. Okay? So that is to prepare your lungs and heart dun sa gagawin yung exercise para magkaroon ng enough na supply ng oxygen while your muscles are very active. Okay? So that's an example of a feed forward. Bakit receptors involved are not part of the loop? Ang receptors na nasa mga tendons, so pag na-stretch sila, they send signals to the brain to help increase the respiratory rate and the heart rate. Okay? So magkaiba yung receptor, location ng receptor kaysa sa effector. Okay? So this is a relatively new control system. It is the adaptive control. It is a form of feed forward. Ang ginagawa lang nito, ang purpose nito is for refining movement or response. Ang example would be shooting basketball successively. So doon sa mga nakaka-relate, pero anyway, kung may iba pa kayo naisip na sport. So you will notice na if you are doing something na repeatedly, like shooting a basketball, kung sumasala yan, so ang target nyo kasi ay ma-shoot, so ulitin nyo siya, ine-evaluate nung brain signals coming from para ma-correct niya yung muscle movement para makapag-produce siya ng motion na may ensure na mag-shoot niya yung basket. So paulit-ulit yung gagawin hanggang ma-correct niya na. So that's the purpose of adaptive control. So nag-a-adapt siya. Okay? So yun ang adaptive control. So the purpose is for refining movement or response. Okay? So that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. Our next topic will be Unit 2, Cell Physiology.